It started with dirt under my wife's friend's nails. Just a little at first, something she thought was nothing. But by the time she realized what was happening, she wished she had never tried to figure it out.
Wait, what do you mean? Like, just dirt from outside?
That's what she thought at first. Until it kept happening. It all began when she turned 18 and moved into her first home. A small one-bedroom house at the edge of town. Creaky floors and peeling paints. It wasn't much, but it was hers.
Sounds kinda cozy, until you mentioned the dirt under her nails.
Yeah, at first, she didn't think much of it. Maybe she was tracking it in while moving boxes. But then it started appearing in her bed.
Okay, no, that's weird. She was sure she wasn't bringing it in.
Positive. She vacuumed, changed her sheets, double-checked. And yet, every morning more dirt. And then came the scratches.
Scratches? On her?
Fresh cuts, like she had been walking through thorns. And her doors, still locked from the inside.
That's messed up. I would've moved out already.
That's when she set up her phone. She wanted to see what was happening while she slept. The first few nights, just tossing and turning, but then just past 3 in the night.
Oh no. I already hate where this is going.
The bed creaked, then footsteps. Hers. She was sleepwalking.
Okay, sleepwalking isn't supernatural. Maybe just stress, right?
That's what she thought, until the recordings picked up the whispers.
Oh hell no. Nope. That's not stress. That's a possession.
She thought maybe it was the wind. But they grew clearer every night. Voices, not hers. So, she switched to video, and what she saw chilled her.
Tell me, but also maybe don't tell me.
Just a few minutes after 3 in the night, she sat up. Eyes open, expression blank. She walked to the door and unlocked it.
While still asleep.
Yeah. And then she left. Walked right into the woods. Then the camera cut to black. The next morning, she followed her own tracks. They led deep into the woods. 10 minutes in, she found something.
Don't say a body. Please don't say a body.
A clearing. Trampled grass. Stones arranged in a pattern. Scorch marks.
Oh, that's a cult thing. That's a definite cult thing.
She had no memory of ever being there. That night, she didn't set up a camera. She stayed awake, eyes wide open, waiting.
Bad idea. So bad.
At around the same time in the night, she felt it. Her body moved on its own.
Shut it down, we're down.
She couldn't stop. Her legs moved. Her hands reached for the door. The whispers surrounded her.
Oh God, what?
And when she reached the clearing, she saw
You must die.
a shadow, standing there, watching.
No, absolutely not. What happened next?
She woke up. In bed. Covered in mud. Scratches everywhere. She left the next day. Didn't take anything. Just walked away.
Smartest thing she's done. But what was it?
She doesn't know. She just knew it wasn't just sleepwalking.
Okay, I need to sleep with a flashlight now. But wait, what if it wasn't just her? What if someone else moved in after her?
Well, let's just say the house is still empty. But the woods, they aren't. Still recovering from the story. What do you think?
That's terrifying. Imagine sleepwalking your way into some kind of ritual without knowing it. What if she never woke up?
That's the real horror, isn't it? Being pulled into something beyond your control, something that doesn't care whether you believe in it or not. And speaking of that, what if it's not sleepwalking? What if it's something, or someone, waiting for you to take the wrong step? Sarah thought it was just another shift, a quiet night in a nearly empty hospital. But the thing about hospitals at night, they feel different. Like something else is awake when the rest of the world is sleeping. Sarah was a nurse, used to the odd hours. But this night was different. It wasn't supposed to be hers. Her friend Emma had begged her to switch shifts on this Friday. Family obligations, she said. Sarah, being the accommodating type, agreed. Her shift started 8 in the night, and would run until 8 in the morning. It was nothing out of the ordinary at first. Rounds and medication checks and the usual of the hospital. Around midnight, things started to feel off. The hospital wasn't busy that night, with only a handful of patients scattered across the floors. But as Sarah walked through the halls, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. At first, she chalked it up to exhaustion. Night shifts mess with your senses. But then, as she passed by the staff lounge, she saw something that made her stop. Through the small window in the lounge door, she spotted Emma, sitting in the staff lounge.
But wasn't she supposed to be gone?
Exactly. Sarah thought the same thing. She stepped inside, called Emma's name. But Emma, she didn't react. She just sat there, staring at the wall. After a while, Emma slightly turned her head. Her face was blank, no expression. In a strange voice she said, "I'll finish my shift." And then, without another word, she walked out, leaving Sarah alone in the room.
No way, that's not normal.
Oh, it gets worse. Because that's when the hospital itself started turning against her.
What do you mean?
Around 3, Sarah did her rounds again when the patient monitors. They all beeped at the same time. The intercom crackled, but no one spoke. And then the patients themselves started noticing. First, an elderly woman in bed whispered, "You shouldn't have taken her shift." Sarah froze and said, "What?" But the woman didn't answer. She just laid back and closed her eyes, as though she'd said nothing at all. It was the same in the next room. A man with a broken leg asked, "Why are you here?" Sarah was terrified. She went to the nurse station to look for another staff member, but it was empty. She ran to call security, but the phone line was dead.
That's the moment you leave.
She tried, but then she heard it. A humming sound. Not a machine, not an alarm. A voice. Coming from the staff lounge. Slowly she followed the voice. She pushed the door open and froze. Sitting at the table facing away from her was Emma. Before she could say anything, Emma turned. Her face was wrong. She whispered, "You shouldn't have taken my shift."
Oh, hell no.
Sarah stumbled backward and ran, not stopping until she reached the front desk. When morning came, Sarah went to her supervisor to report what had happened. When she mentioned Emma, the supervisor frowned and said that you took her shift last night, right? They checked the security footage together, but there was nothing. It showed her walking the halls alone. Emma, she was never there.
I don't know what's worse. Sleepwalking and seeing the unseen, or seeing people you know, but then horrifyingly realizing it was not them. What do you think?
Should I tell you another one?
Tell me the story you once mentioned about your father's friend but never got the chance to share.
Okay, sometimes the strangest encounters happen in places we least expect. Let me take you to the scorching deserts of the UAE. He was a taxi driver whose experience on a quiet night still haunts him.
A taxi driver in the desert of UAE. Now that sounds like a whole new nightmare.
It happened back in the 90s. My father's friend used to drive a taxi in the UAE. He had countless passengers and a trove of late-night stories, but there was one tale he'd rarely speak of. One that he said was too strange to share casually.
What made it so unforgettable?
One quiet evening, while parked near the outskirts of the city, an elderly woman flagged him down. Dressed in traditional Emirati attire with her face partially hidden, she politely asked for a ride to an event deep in the desert, far from civilization. As they began the ride, everything was normal. The lady sat silently in the back, gazing out the window. But once they left the busy city behind, she mentioned she'd forgotten to bring money for the fare. He was a bit annoyed, but decided to finish the ride. After all, they were already more than halfway.
Sounds like he was just being polite, but I have a feeling it wasn't that simple.
Right you are. As they ventured deeper into the desert, a strange wind picked up, swirling the sand into intricate patterns around the car, as if forming a barrier. He slowed down, unease creeping in, but the woman remained calm, even offering a faint, knowing smile. When the wind passed and the desert returned to its eerie silence, she started talking. She asked about his life, his struggles, and his family. Her tone was compassionate, almost maternal, and he, though cautious, found himself sharing details about his hardships, his long hours, his distant family back home, and his dreams of returning to them someday. In return, he asked why such an event would take place so far into the desert. With a small, mysterious smile, she said nothing at first, then gestured toward a distant glow. Moments later, shimmering lights appeared through the haze, a lavishly decorated event in the middle of the barren desert, complete with golden lights and distant laughter.
A lavish event in the middle of nowhere. That's unreal.
Unreal indeed. When they arrived, he was taken aback. There were no parked cars, no clear road, just a gathering. The woman asked to be dropped off at the entrance, apologized again for having no fare, and thanked him profusely before vanishing into the crowd.
And then, I bet the night was far from over.
Not at all. He lingered for a moment, unsettled by the surreal scene before him, then decided to head back to the city. As he headed back, that same strange wind enveloped his car, swirling even more violently. He muttered prayers under his breath. When it finally subsided, he entered the city feeling shaken. But as he parked his taxi, something in the back seat caught his eye. Small, polished gold stone glowing in the faint light, exactly where the mysterious woman had sat.
A gold stone?
Yes, he kept the stone for weeks, keeping it as a reminder of that inexplicable night. In the end, he chose to sell it to get back to his family and spend the rest of the life with them. What was that night? He couldn't quite explain. A night that made him question whether he'd encountered a mere passenger or something far beyond the ordinary. From haunted hospitals to ghostly rides through the desert, these stories remind us that the line between reality and the supernatural is often blurred. What did you think of his encounter?
It's unsettling and also surprising to have a gift in the shape of gold from an unknown passenger. I bet that lady was something more.
You are right, and remember, sometimes the most mundane journey can become a descent into mystery. Keep your eyes open. You never know what, or who, might be waiting just around the corner.